Hello everyone, welcome back to Speaking Spurs and me, Kieran, talking all things Tottenham. Today is a transfer update video. Lots and lots to talk about today. Joe Lewis talking on Harry Kane, Davinson Sanchez, Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg, Kolo Muani, Dusan Vlahovic, Jonathan David, Ivan Toney, Andrea Cambiasso, Conor Gallagher. Loads and loads to fit in. We're going to try and talk about as much of it as I can today. So yeah, I'm going to jump into it, but just to say beforehand, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. Don't forget to support the video with a like. It takes 2 seconds. And as always, post your comments below about anything we speak about today or anything that you would like me to talk about in the upcoming future. So let's just jump into it. The biggest story is obviously about Harry Kane, and we might mention the ridiculous comments about Kylian Mbappe as well. So the news broke last night, and it's been going on throughout the day, that Joe Lewis has now stepped in. I don't know how much of this is true because he's always trusted Daniel Levy to make decisions on transfers, but the rumour is Joe Lewis has basically said Harry Kane is not to leave for free whatsoever. Don't want to run the risk, so if he doesn't sign a contract, ultimatum time. He needs to sign a new contract this summer. If he doesn't, he's going to have to be sold because we can't afford to lose him on a free. To me, it seems like it's common sense anyway. Nobody wants to run the risk of losing a £100 million striker on a free. Then the links have obviously come in with Kylian Mbappe, which today there's been a ridiculous bid accepted by PSG. I think it was like 260 something million pounds. By, is it Al Halil or something like that in the Saudi league. So PSG naturally have accepted. They'd be crazy not to. He's in a year left of his contract. This way it stops him from going across to any of the other teams that they could possibly come up against in the Champions League. Because they're obviously under the suspicion that Real Madrid have got a pre-agreement with him for when his contract runs out. But there's a ridiculous report saying that Tottenham are willing to ask to have Kylian Mbappe on loan this season. Now, it's not going to happen given the choices. Kylian Mbappe is not going to come to Tottenham, a team with no Champions League football. So just ignore that one. But yeah, talking about the people that we could be bringing in if Harry Kane does go out the door. There's been lots of links to several strikers. Ivan Toney is one that's very much on the radar for January. Naturally, we know he's got his ban up until then, so to sign him now financially doesn't make sense, but you run the risk if you wait till January. You're up against a lot more clubs for his signature, which naturally bumps the price up. You'll get into a little bit of a war there. He's then got more options, and depending on how our season's going, depends on whether he's likely to want to come to us or not. Bringing him in now, obviously, you've got the outlay of the transfer fee. You're going to have to pay him his wages up until then as well. But I don't know how that would work anyway, because he's not allowed to take part in football activity. So I'm not sure how it all happens. But I think Ivan Toney would be a wonderful addition to the squad. He's proved himself in the Premier League, can play across the front line anywhere. Great player. Another one, Jonathan David, we've been linked with a few times. Obviously, he's at Lille. Canadian striker. He's done very, very well. He's somebody that we've very much been looking at for quite a while now. I think he'd be more than capable. Probably would take him a little while to settle down. But interestingly, Juventus are actually looking at the possibility of taking Jonathan David as well, which brings me on to the next striker, Dusan Vlahovic, who obviously we were linked with massively before he made his move to Juve. So there is a chance that Jonathan David goes to Juve, we swoop in for Vlahovic, everybody's happy. I personally would love Vlahovic. I've mentioned it several times when we were linked with him before. I'm sure I mentioned it a couple of videos ago, or maybe in the last one. Not sure. But anyway, he's a striker I very much admire. I think that he would suit the Premier League down to a T. Physically, he's up to it. He's a great goal scorer. But yeah, the striker that we've been linked with a lot today is Kolo Muani. Randal Kolo Muani. So he's Eintracht Frankfurt. Not been there too long. Signed for them in 2022. He had 32 appearances and scored 15 goals. He came across from Nantes. That was the club he was at before in France, and did pretty well there. So he started off in Nantes B, where he had 62 appearances and 17 goals. Then in 2018 was promoted to the first team, where he made 79 appearances and scored 21 goals. Then went out on loan to Bologna, 14 appearances and 3 goals, and then back to to Nantes. So that was 2019-2020, then back to Nantes first team, and then made the move to Eintracht Frankfurt. He also has been called into the French international squad. He's made appearances at under 21s, 7 appearances and a goal. The French Olympic team, 4 appearances and 1 goal, and then to the full international, 9 appearances and 1 goal. So internationally, he was called up to the UEFA Nations League matches. Then in November 2022, he replaced Nkunku in France's World Cup squad after he was forced to withdraw with injury. Then in the December, he actually scored his first goal for France. That was in the semi-final match against Morocco, slotted in a deflected shot from Kylian Mbappe. He also became the 3rd fastest player to score a goal as a substitute in a World Cup after 44 seconds. And then in the final against Argentina, he actually won a penalty that was converted by Kylian Mbappe. And then he scored his penalty in the shootout. He also had an opportunity to score in the World Cup, but it was saved by Martinez, which has been described as the new save of the century. His style of play, he's drawn comparisons to legendary French striker and nemesis to Spurs, Thierry Henry. He began his career as a wide player, known for his pace and trickery, much like Henry, but eventually transitioned into the centre-forward position. Both players similar height, around 6'2". They both possess those rangy physiques. His languid dribbling style and impressive speed are also reminiscent of Henry's style of play, particularly during his younger days. He has a remarkable strength on the ball and a playful approach to the game that can leave defenders trailing behind him. So the French national team, Didier Deschamps, acknowledged Muani's many qualities, describing him as a player who has a significant presence, runs in behind from deep, and has good finishing ability. And then Frankfurt's coach, Oliver Glasner, praised Muani's speed, tackling, dribbling and finishing skills, noting that he's an asset to the team. And Marcus Kirscher, Eintracht's board member for sport, expressed his excitement for Kolo Muani's potential, stating that his speed, robustness, finishing skills and tactical versatilities are qualities that the team needs. He further noted that Kolo Muani's potential had attracted interest from many clubs, and the team is delighted that he's chosen to take the next steps with them. So obviously he's not been there for very long. He's also being tracked by other clubs. Manchester United is somebody that was potentially looking at him. Now obviously Kane's possibility of going to Bayern Munich is a bit of a blow to Manchester United. Then us looking at Muani as a replacement is also another blow to them. The other interesting thing about the Kane deal, apparently there are now talks of a 3rd bid from Bayern Munich, but they're looking to insert a clause in there as a buyback clause, which is a bit of a sweetener to the deal, because we could be backed into a corner where we have to sell Harry Kane. Then a buyback clause is possibly a good thing. The only issue with a buyback clause, it still very much depends on Harry Kane. He could be at Bayern for 2 years. We could trigger the buyback clause, and then Harry Kane might sit there and go, do you know what? Don't want to go back to Spurs. And then that opens it up for other English clubs to come and get him. So it is a risk still, either way. But that is something that they're looking at. Could be a bit more attractive. You never know. He'll go to Bayern. He will win a trophy, whether that be the league or one of the cups. He's got a possibility of winning the Champions League. He might do 2 seasons over there and go, do you know what? I'm ready to go back to Spurs to finish my career over there, score the winning goals to take me ahead of Alan Shearer, become a Premier League hero. Like, it's all a possibility. But yeah, talking of Muani, so he's basically said that if there is no move this summer, he's more than happy to spend a second season with Eintracht Frankfurt. And he scored 23 goals in 46 appearances for the German side last season. And then returning on to pre-season training, he actually said that, we've talked a bit about it already, but I tried to stay focused on the club. We continue our performances and we'll see this summer afterwards. I always dreamed of playing in big clubs. I thought I was going to need some time to adapt, maybe a year, but everything exploded. Either way, I'm ready for any challenge. I asked the club to get my statistics on my matches each time. I share this with my physical trainer to know what to improve. I I do a lot of goals and assists, but it's not at the level where I should be. I still miss quite a bit. This is only my third full season as a professional. And, you know, he's been on a bit of an upward trajectory. He is an exciting talent. Frankfurt, we've obviously seen in European competition. They're a very good side. So look, if that's a striker we end up with, great. It's going to take a lot of the kitty. I think it's like 69 million that he will cost. So whatever we get for Kane, a big chunk of it's going to be put on that. But I think you have to sign an exciting striker, and I think money is going to come into play no matter who we sign, whether that be Jonathan David, Vlahovic, Ivan Toney, or Muani himself. Now, moving on to the next one, we'll talk about Davinson Sanchez. So as you know that it never worked out. 40 plus million he cost us. Could have had the world at his feet. He's got all the attributes to be a great centre-back. Just hasn't happened. A few niggling injuries, lack of concentration, lack of game time. It's already cost him. So he's in advanced talks now with Spartak Moscow, believed to be 12 million euros, which is about 10.4 million. So it was believed that bid has probably been accepted now. He's more than happy to go there. And it's about time we get him off the books. It's not going to happen for him. He has moments where he looks great, moments where he doesn't. So that's probably where he's going to go. Is it a good move for him? Yes, I think so. I think going to a big club right now is probably not the right move for him. He needs to get himself back on track. So that is looking like where he is going to go. Then, what else are we looking at here? Conor Gallagher. Now, I don't know where I sit on this one. So he is set to leave Chelsea this summer, apparently. Tottenham and West Ham both lead the race to sign the England international. So, look, Pochettino's deemed him surplus to requirements, despite the fact that Conor Gallagher's actually scored in the last two pre-season wins. They came over Brighton, and the one before that was against Wrexham, both in the States. He's been actively offered to clubs this summer. The Hammers are obviously ready to push a bit more ahead of us because they need to bring in two midfielders after selling Declan Rice to Arsenal. We're obviously the more attractive option, despite the fact that West Ham have obviously got European football after winning the Europa Conference League last season. The good thing is he represents a homegrown option, as well as the potential to replace Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg, although they play fairly different positions within the midfield. The thing about Gallagher that's great, he's got a good engine on him, works really hard. Obviously, we've seen that he has got an eye for goal, obviously in the last two games. He actually came through the Chelsea Academy. He's been with them since the age of 6. He was keen to stay and fight for his place at Stamford Bridge, but has accepted that he now needs to leave with them, or unwilling to offer him a new deal. Obviously, we know that he had a fantastic season with Palace, very exciting. Everton actually attempted to sign him back in the January transfer window, but were willing to pay up to 45 million, but he wasn't interested in the move. He's also been linked with Newcastle and Liverpool, but they're believed to have now called their interest, mainly because they've gone out and signed other midfield targets. Now, he's 23 years old, he's got plenty of time to improve. However, I think with the fact that we still haven't signed a centre-back, it's probably not on the priority list right now, even if we sell Höjbjerg, because in Gallagher's position, I still think there's a possibility that either Tanguy Ndombele or Giovani Lo Celso could do a job. And I know neither of those count as homegrown, but I think they're more talented players. They offer more in a creative sense. I know that Tanguy obviously doesn't work as hard, but we'll see what happens. So look, I think that's one that possibly could happen. I wouldn't be disappointed if we got him, but at the same time, I wouldn't be overly excited. So, moving on to Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg then. So, obviously, we know there's been links with Atletico Madrid, and understandably, they're looking at a defensive midfielder. Their board have been putting a list together of potential incomings, and I think of all of them, Hojbjerg is probably the most financially viable for them at this time. Honestly, in a defensive midfield capacity, he's great. You know, he'll represent value for money for them. He obviously wants Champions League football again, and he has been a bit underappreciated at Spurs at times, especially by the fans. Him himself, he's got an engine. Obviously in the top midfield, I've said several times they've been overrun because of the formation that we played. So a lot of the time we saw poor performances from him. Wasn't actually his fault. It was down to the formation and kind of having three central midfielders against the two of Spurs, whether he be partnering Oliver Skip or Bazuma or Bentancur. That was always a mismatch. He was always the main man. But the one thing he gives you, apart from the engine, he doesn't get injured. So he guarantees you minutes on the pitch. Absolute warrior. He's one of those, I keep saying it, you don't realise what you've got until he's gone. He's one of those players. He'd be foolish not to take the move, I think. Champions League football. Obviously, he's played in Denmark, Germany, now England. I think it would be a good move for him with Champions League football. So I wish him all the best. I don't want to see him go. I know there are a lot of Spurs fans that do, but for those of you that do, trust me, you're going to miss him when he's gone. Then moving on to defensive signings, one that we're looking at is Juventus fullback Andrea Cambiasso, and that's just according to reports in Italy. He had a successful loan spell during his time as a Genoa player, and worked to establish himself as a first-team regular for the Italian outfit. So Juventus were clearly impressed by the young defender, spending around €8.8 million to sign him in July 2022. He was then instantly shipped out on loan to Serie A rivals Bologna, for whom he played 34 times across all competitions last term. He's able to play as a left back and a right back, or a wide midfielder, so that gives him a bit of versatility, which is great, especially if injuries come into play, or a shift in system. He's attracting interest from clubs all across Europe, though Juventus are reportedly not open to letting him leave on a permanent basis. And Cambiasso's agent Giovani Lo has backed up those claims. He said Juventus strongly wanted him. They put a lot of money on the table, and they will certainly make their own assessments before depriving themselves of him. And I think they will also ask for a lot of money, Lo said. What is happening is there for all to see. Last week, some teams approached, and I think that something will happen here too, but Juventus will not deprive themselves of him easily. So despite Juventus' stance, the report claims discussions could develop amidst claims the player is valued at around €25 million. What do I think of this one? I think he's a young, talented player. A lot depends on what happens with Perisic and also Sergio Reguilon. Like, we just don't know what Postecoglou's going to think. Sessegnon, we know he's injured, so nothing's going to happen to him, at least for now. So he's definitely saying Ben Davies can play as a left back. It depends what Postecoglou thinks of that one. Obviously, we've seen him in pre-season playing the left centre-back role, but obviously Dyer's out injured. And we're still to make our minds up on Longley and several centre-back options. So that one, I don't really know. That one's probably, it's not a priority as far as I'm concerned, because if Perisic is going to stay, he can play there. Then obviously you've got possibility of Reguilon and Ben Davies. So there's enough players there at the moment. Giovani Lo Celso, Spurs have received a boost in their attempts to offload him. So we obviously signed him from Real Betis on loan in August 2019, before making it permanent a year later for €32 million. We also paid a €16 million loan fee, so it's safe to say that we've not got our money's worth from the signing. But he spent the last 18 months on loan with Villarreal, and Real Betis are now reportedly eager to bring him back on a permanent basis. So they sold Sergio Canales for 10 million plus 7 million add-ons, which can go a long way to buying Lo Celso from Spurs. Apparently we want around €25 million. We'll see. So he is an option, as is West Ham midfielder Pablo Fornals. I personally don't want to see him go. It's really annoying. I know he's not got long left on his contract, but I just think we've now got a manager that plays a system that will actually suit him. He obviously plays well for Argentina. We saw what he did in his first pre-season game, so it's one of them. It's really frustrating, but financially I think it makes sense for the club, depending on who we then bring in. Is there anyone else I need to talk about? Höjbjerg, Muani. No, I think that's about it. Is that it? So, sorry, centre-backs. Of course that's not it, centre-backs. So, the updates, there's still not much there. I don't really want to talk about the one for the youngster that obviously had his medical. Now they're asking for more money, apparently, and I know people are saying just go ahead and pay it. But we don't know how much they're asking for. Apparently it's all in add-ons. So look, I don't want to talk about that one, but Van de Ven, Tapsoba, very still much up in the air. And then there was reports on Adarabioyo from Fulham. He wants to move to Tottenham. Tottenham are looking at him, and once again, it's not the news we want to hear, but a lot of it's come down to the fact that he is the cheaper option of the three. He obviously counts as homegrown as well, so that actually is a good aspect, the homegrown thing. But look, just go out and get Tapsoba. He's the most expensive of them, but he's the most ready right now, and that's what we need. And the issue is, look, we're now on the 24th of July. We're in a position where time's going by. We just need someone there because they need time to settle in. It's a different way of us playing. They're going to need to get to know their centre-back partner, whoever's going to be playing the full-back on that particular side. So relationships need to start being built. It's getting a bit of a mess now. It's taking too long. I'm not happy with it. We need to get someone through the door. So that's your Tottenham update for today. We've managed to cram a lot in there in just over 20 minutes. So thanks for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, support it with a like, post your comments below, and until next time, come on you Spurs.